Tonight you're going to set an alarm for 6 a.m. You already know what happens next. It goes off, you turn it off, you tell yourself tomorrow will be different. But the real answer for why this keeps happening is far stranger than laziness. You've been told your whole life that discipline is a trait. Some people have it, some people don't. You either grind or you don't. But that idea is wrong, and it's been wrong for decades. Discipline isn't something you have. It's something that gets built around you, whether you notice it or not. Think about the last time you played a game for 6 hours straight without even checking the clock. Nobody had to force you. Nobody yelled at you to keep going. You just kept going. Why does that come so easily when getting up early feels like lifting a car off your chest? The answer starts nearly 3 million years ago, long before alarms, long before to-do lists. Your ancestors didn't wake up and decide to be disciplined. They woke up hungry. The environment did the deciding for them. Find food or don't eat. Move or freeze. There was no gap between wanting and doing, because the world closed that gap automatically. Discipline, as a separate mental muscle you have to flex, didn't need to exist yet. The consequences were immediate. And immediate consequences shape behavior far more powerfully than distant ones ever could. That's the part modern life quietly removed. Your brain still runs on the same reward system it did back then. In the 1990s, a neuroscientist named Wolfram Schultz ran a series of experiments on dopamine that changed how scientists understood motivation entirely. He found that dopamine isn't released when you get a reward. It's released when a reward is better than expected. It's a prediction system, not a pleasure system. That single distinction explains almost everything about why some tasks pull you in and others repel you. A game is a machine built entirely around that prediction system. Every level, every loot drop, every "you're almost there" progress bar is engineered to create small, frequent moments where the outcome beats your expectation. Waking up at 6 a.m. offers no such moment. There's no drop, no progress bar, no ping. Just silence and a body that wants to stay warm. So here's the reframe. You were never missing discipline. You were missing feedback. For a long time, psychologists thought willpower worked like a muscle. Use it, and it gets tired. This idea, called ego depletion, was popularized by the psychologist Roy Baumeister in the 1990s, and for years it was treated as settled science. People believed self-control was a finite resource that drained across the day, which is why you feel strong in the morning and weak by midnight. But something strange happened when other labs tried to replicate the effect. In large-scale replication studies published in the 2010s, the ego depletion effect shrank dramatically, and in many cases it disappeared entirely. Willpower, it turns out, behaves less like a muscle and more like a belief. People who were told willpower is limited got tired faster. People who were told it wasn't, didn't. Your discipline was never draining. You were performing the story you'd been told about yourself. Doesn't that change how you'd look at your own failed 6 a.m. mornings? There's another famous study that gets misunderstood constantly. In the late 1960s, the psychologist Walter Mischel ran what became known as the Marshmallow Test. Children were left alone with one marshmallow and told that if they waited, they'd get 2. The children who waited longer went on, in follow-up studies decades later, to show better outcomes in some areas of life. For years, this was sold as proof that willpower predicts success. But later analysis of Mischel's own data told a different story. The children who waited longer weren't holding back some internal reserve of grit. They were using strategies. They looked away. They sang songs. They covered their eyes. They turned an impossible task into a manageable one by changing their environment, not by gritting their teeth. The kids with willpower didn't win. The kids with tactics did. This is the counterintuitive twist. Discipline was never about resisting temptation head-on. It was about redesigning the moment so resistance wasn't even required. And here's where it gets stranger. You already know this. You've known it for years, every time you've played a well-designed game. Game designers don't ask players to have discipline. They remove the need for it. They lower the friction to start playing to almost zero. One click. No loading screen you have to sit through twice. They raise the friction to quit right when you're about to stop. A. Are you sure you want to leave this match screen? Timed perfectly against your restlessness. They stack small wins close together, so your dopamine system gets constant proof that progress is happening. None of this requires the player to be a disciplined person. It requires the system to be well built. Behavioral scientist B.J. Fogg spent years studying exactly this at Stanford, and his research kept arriving at the same uncomfortable conclusion. Motivation is unreliable. It rises and falls like weather. But friction is controllable. Make a behavior tiny enough and remove enough obstacles in front of it, and it happens almost automatically, with no willpower spent at all. The people who seem the most disciplined aren't fighting harder. They've simply engineered fewer moments where a fight is necessary. So look again at the 6 a.m. alarm. The version of you that fails at 6 a.m. put the phone across the room the night before, right? Actually, probably not. The phone is on the nightstand. Turning off the alarm takes one motion, half asleep, no friction at all. Meanwhile, the reward for getting up is invisible, distant, abstract. Compare that to a game, where quitting is annoying and continuing is one satisfying click away. You're not failing a character test at 6 a.m. You're losing a design battle that was rigged against you before you ever went to sleep. This is the part that should feel like relief instead of blame. You don't need to become a different kind of person. You need to become a better designer of your own 5-second decisions. Move the phone across the room, and the friction to snooze goes up. Lay out your gear the night before, and the friction to start goes down. Give yourself a visible marker of progress, a streak, a chart, a checkbox, anything your dopamine system can register as better than expected, and the whole mechanism that keeps you playing a game past midnight starts working for your goals instead of against them. Your ancestors never had to think about any of this, because their environment did the engineering for them automatically. You live in an environment engineered by other people, for other purposes, mostly to keep you scrolling, watching, and clicking on things that don't build the life you actually want. The rare people who seem endlessly disciplined aren't running on a different fuel than you. They've just taken back control of the engineering. Every game you've ever lost hours to was proof of a skill you already have. You are already excellent at following systems that reward you quickly, clearly, and often. The only shift is deciding where you point that skill. So tonight, when that alarm goes off at 6 a.m., ask yourself something different than, why am I so undisciplined? Ask what a good game designer would change about this exact moment to make the 6 a.m. version of you want to move. Change the friction. Change the feedback. Then watch what happens when the fight disappears entirely, because it was never a fight you were built to lose. It was a system you hadn't built yet.